Welcome back to my shop. Today's video isn't going to be a how-to, but more of a review video. If you recall, when I was prepping for my September Windrock trip, I installed a nice set of Rhino Axles from SuperATV in the rear of my 4-seat 900. In that video I mentioned I'd be doing a review of those axles after I got a chance to beat on them a little, and beat on them I did. Of course they held up great, but as it turns out I should have also replaced the front ones because I managed to break both stock front axles in the same afternoon.
Whoa, it's good. Oh, don't let up. Don't.
As you can see, I'm in the process of replacing the broken Polaris front axles with Rhino axles. The driver's side is already done, and the broken one on the passenger side has been removed. Before I put the new Rhino axle in, let's do a side-by-side comparison. Well, here we have a shiny new SuperATV Rhino axle sitting next to my broken factory one. I'm not saying the Polaris axles aren't any good, they simply aren't designed to go rock crawling on double black diamond trails, especially with big heavy 29 by 11 inch tires on 14 by 8 bead locks running low pressure. The Rhino axles are designed to handle that kind of abuse. Let's see what the specs say. Right here on the box they answer the question, why Rhino brand? First bullet point, maximized CV and shaft size for ultimate strength. That basically means they made the shafts as thick as they could make them without going into an over excessive weight. They made the CV joints as large and heavy duty as they can make them and still have the actual fit in the vehicle. If these were any bigger than they are, they'd actually be hitting some of the components around them. As you can see, this CV joint is quite a bit larger from the factory one. Makes it much stronger, heavy duty. This end of the CV joint on the outer end of the axle is pretty much the same size as the inner side. The next one, high articulation angles. That means that the axles are able to run at sharper angles, which is great if you've got like a tall suspension lift, or if you're on the throttle and you got your wheels turned. The axle is designed to withstand loads at a higher angle, so you should have less chance of failure, which is exactly what happened here. Industry leading 4340 chrome moly for unmatched longevity. Chrome moly steel is what they make like aftermarket cages and chassis out of. It's really tough material. The axle being made of this is going to help it not only be stronger but also last longer from one end to the other. A precision engineered cage and housing for reduced friction and smooth range of motion. Well, this is the cage it's referring to. It's inside the CV joint here. These little ball bearings fit inside of it, and you'd have them all the way around. Here's the center part of the CV joint. There's a spline here that fits right on the axle. But these go right up against these ball bearings, and what you would have is a full circle here, and this inner piece would be a full circle. The axle drives this center collar, and then it drives against the ball bearings, and then they drive against slots inside the CV joint. And this cage here holds it all together. It's a little bit like how your front differential works. What happened here is, under load with my wheels turned, this just couldn't handle the stress with the big tires, and it just popped all this stuff, and this is literally all that's left. The rest of it, I guess, fell out on the trail somewhere. Hopefully it doesn't go into somebody's tire. But what they're saying is, if this cage isn't precision engineered, you'll end up with excess heat, which will cook the grease, which will then create additional friction, and then cause the axle to fail, even if it's under normal operating conditions. Alright, synthetic grease to keep the CVs cool each time you ride. Well, they have synthetic grease inside of them. We all know synthetic grease is superior to petroleum-based grease, so they should help keep the joint running cooler, which will help, reduce friction and wear. Alright, this is the end that typically fails on a front axle. This CV joint breaks from too much stress. Sometimes this outer housing will even split open. Usually this happens when you're hard on the throttle with the front wheels turned and it suddenly gets a good bite. or you may have the front tire up in the air and suddenly it makes contact with the ground. It'll just pop this joint. But you know, I could sit here all day and tell you all about how great these axles are, but you don't have to take my word for it. Check out these clips of the Rhinos in the rear of my machine in action.
Hey, four-wheel drive.
I saw one of yours.
Yeah, that's right. God, that's a big old long son of a gun. Dang it. Donnie, try that one. Good gosh. Climb it. Climb it. There you go.
If a picture is worth 1,000 words, and a video is easily worth 10 times that. Now I'm going to get back to installing this other axle and getting my machine back on its wheels. The installation procedure is pretty much the same as in the rear. The only real difference is you just have to remove these two pinch bolts and separate the hub assembly from the front arms. Then you tighten them back to 42 foot-pounds. The rest of the process is pretty much the same, and you can use my how-to video for the rear axles if you need help. Alright, well I got it all back together. I got it sitting on the ground. I'm going to go out and run it, try everything out, make sure I put everything back in the right place. Well, let's all give a round of applause to SuperATV for building products that let our machines handle anything we can throw at them. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the trails.